about the upcoming legislature, and I say upcoming is upcoming real fast. And I just like to get your views on, number one, do we need a lobbyist at this late date? And number two is what the process again we need to go through in terms of getting that lobbyist. So I'll open up for conversation.
I move that we do entertain a discussion on hiring a lobbyist to advocate on our behalf through the General Assembly for session 2018.
So you, Mr. Councilman, we move a discussion as we move to actually get lobbyist.
I'm moving for a discussion.
I don't think we have to do that, but if you're moving to make a motion to hire a lobbyist, I think we can have a discussion. That's not a problem. Now, that's what we're doing now. Mayor Pro Tem.
Before we talk about lobbying, what is in fact our agenda in terms of the city? In terms of what issues will we take up during the session? I think that's an important part of the conversation before we entertain any discussion about the lobby.
I think you're right. Legislative agenda comes first. I think Councilwoman Gilliard.
In addition to that, with many of the decisions that we're making, particularly this year, we have to deal with where the money's coming from. Right now, there's a line item for commodities. So there is not. So that's the issue too. Add to us having a discussion about a lobby.
Councilman Khalid.
For the pleasure of the public, could someone explain what a lobbyist does and how much we will be paying them to do this?
Well, we don't know what we're going to be paying, but lobbyists act on our behalf in the legislature to push our agenda. And you're totally right, but when you were talking about what our agenda is going to be, once we recognize that agenda, lobbyists will go around to both sides, House and the Senate, Democratic, Republican, Independent, whatever, to solicit support for the agenda that we get.
Is there something in particular that they can do that we could not do ourselves?
Can I expound, Mayor, because I lobby?
Just a minute. Yeah, I get you. Well, I don't know many elected officials who have time to lie. But to answer your question, yes, they can do more than we can do for ourselves. Let me look and ask you.
So because I have lobbied, I can speak to this. First of all, lobbyists was very important about hiring a lobbyist is that they have relationships that we don't have. That if we had to do ourselves, we would have to guard relationships both on the Republican and Democratic side. We would have to have a lot of time because a lot of time will be spent not only at the Capitol but also in meetings, individual meetings. You also would have to monitor any legislation that will be impactful to us. And you have to be prepared to testify at the committee hearings because all bills go through committee. Most bills, not all, most bills go through committees. So you will have to be prepared to not only testify as it moves through the process. So number one, we will have to have time to do that. Not any of us will have time. Not any of us have the relationships we need on both sides of the aisle. And that's mostly, and they will have to have the power of influence to come back and communicate to us. They also will have to be able to come back and communicate to us on where the bills are and what we need to do, and if we need to garner community support.
So my last question is, that was a really great segment about relationships. We have an entire state delegation, and I'm just wondering, I hear that they may be amending our charter. I'm wondering, has anyone here spoken with members of our own state delegation? Do we know what they are planning to do on our behalf in this legislative session? I don't.
I have spoken with some of them, and they don't only work on our behalf, they work on the behalf of the residents in the constituents they represent. They work on behalf of the state. So I have spoken with them about some of the changes they're proposing to do with our charter. Some of them I support, some of them, you know, I don't. But at the end of the day, they're not our lobbyists, they're our state representatives. And that's why lobbyists will be instrumental, because what lobbyists will do will represent what we want.
Again, I just, for the record, I haven't spoken with anyone in our state delegation. None of them have called me, and I've called them, and none of them have returned my calls. So I don't know what they're planning.
So, Mr. Freeman, I have asked that we have a joint meeting with the city council and the legislative delegation. And to be careful with the fact that we want to make sure that that our senators also like to, so I'm working on the date where they will get the two actual parties together so that we can discuss what we need to be dealing with.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Jackson, I saw, and then Mr. Baker, Mr. Jackson.
Okay, the legislature is about to go in session, and do we have enough time to look for a firm that can reach across both party lines to, I don't think so. I mean, to really do our homework, to reach across party lines to address our needs.
Exactly, I think you're right. I think time is of the essence of it being considered, because number one, as Ms. Miller said, we don't have a legislative agenda that we have worked on as of yet. And we'll be, let me ask HR, we would have to go out and put out for a lobbying firm or person, wouldn't we?
You have to.
It's
That's human resources.
procedural that.
It's a purchasing matter, and it depends on the value of what we tend to pay. You have to put it out for bid.
That's all I
Depends
want
on
to
the
know.
value.
Yeah, that's all I want to know. Okay, thank you so much. I should have had purchasing here. I guess I acknowledge that we should have done that. Sorry, but let me get Mr. Baker.
Okay, first I would like to say thank you for setting up that meeting. It's something that's much needed, probably since last year, August. But with that being said, I just wanted to ask you, based off, your experience, is it normal for a state delegation to move forward with changes to a charter for a city without conferring with them prior to? I said, is it normal?
It can, but I think it's the right thing to do is, one of them told me once that I'll move if you all want us to move. All right? My position is, if in fact we want you to move on something, we would tell you. All right? And that's why I want to have this meeting. So regardless of what you think you need to do, we want to say, we don't want to give the impression that we need to be so-called nursemaids by anybody for us to go forward. So I would hope that this meeting will help us to get to an understanding that maybe we agree with what you're doing, but we got to find a way to do it. Because number one thing is like ethics. All right? We felt that we need to have our own ethics that we agree upon, amend and change or whatever. It's going to be the same way with this process. So I'm going to get the meeting together so we can discuss it, because like Councilwoman Willis, you got some of the things you may agree with, some of the things you may not agree with. And I'm not one to open up this charter for much. I mean, we put ourselves in a bad position when we decide to open this charter for something. Go ahead. You still got something?
With that being said, I guess it's okay to operate under the auspice that they were going to move forward absent a conversation with us. Secondly, I just wanted to ask if some of the things on the proposed agenda that we received in the email are relevant to things that we may need a lobbyist for, as far as how we're going to be moving forward in upcoming year. Like,
What?
no, from the mayor.
I didn't understand.
Like, the email that we received with the direction that we're moving in, or we may be moving in, do we need to have a lobbyist to follow through on that proposed agenda for the possibility?
I don't know what it, I'm not emailing.
Okay, the email you sent yesterday at 4:35 p.m.?
Oh, no, that's totally different.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
that's totally different. Yeah. But, you know, I got to get Ms. Gomes and then Mr. Orwell.
No, I think that we were just pretty much identifying the outline, and the first step that we need is to look at the agenda and determine if the money is available, and then do RFP or something for a firm. So I guess we need to just say yes or no right now, whether or not we want to allow this for development. I mean,
I think it's going to, times of essence, I think it's both. I mean, but you can't do one, you have to develop the agenda first. You know, and I don't know how we do that, whether we'll have a workshop or special call meeting, whatever, to talk about the legislative agenda, but time is essential. And let me tell you something else. The legislature is not going to be long this time, because they all have to run for office. So they're going to get up out of there. So they get, they go back and stay in their seat. So that's another thing to consider when we talk about the time. I think let me do this. Ms. Jones, you're next in, Roel, I'm sorry.
One of the things I want to say is I know, Ron wasn't building today, and neither was the city of South Fulton. I think in terms of us taking on agendas, really, from my perspective, we probably only have one big issue that we probably need to look at, which is Fulton Industrial, bringing them in our city. And so I would caution that we not create an agenda this first year that would be unrealistic, given also the fact that they will be running for their seats, that we focus our attention on that one item and pretty much that item only.
Okay.
There's another piece that we have to watch. Yes, Fulton Industrial is our most important item, but we still have the locked only case pending, and we have to watch to make sure there isn't going to be any legislation introduced to keep that area through legislation. As long as that case is pending, correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Josh Belafonte, they still can do two things. They can annex by starting a new petition, or they can annex by legislation.
They could do that because the court's position right now is that while those areas are not within the city of Atlanta, their status as to whether they're unincorporated or not is unclear. That may be resolved during the legislative session. It depends on if the Court of Appeals decides to entertain the full case. But it certainly, I think, would be arguable that the legislature could change the borders of Atlanta by annexing that territory. Whether that would be legal or not, I'm not prepared to say, but it doesn't mean people won't try.
And I've seen it done. Trust me, I've seen it done. So I think those are two things that we need to watch for.
When I was the other thing I want to kind of make clear, I want to kind of make clear is that Mayor Pro Tem, you're right. That's the big thing for us. But there are things that are going on in the state that may have an effect on the city. You know, so that's another issue you have to, it's not just get there for us in our local municipalities, but they also lobby for us with other cities and municipalities that state.
With some of those issues not be addressed through affiliation with GMA, I understand we can always have issues. I mean, that is in fact true, but also I think to the point that several people have made, It's going to be a short session. We know that's pretty much our focus. We've also talked about a resource issue. And, you know, some of my questions I want to ask are actually in executive session relative to our attorneys. I don't think it's appropriate to have here, but to look at what other options might be available to address those two issues that have been brought up.
I agree GMA would be good, and if we have an issue that we sign on with GMA as supporting that issue. I just wanted to put it out there that some of our issues go beyond our board. Mr. Cornelius?
Yes, I was gonna say one, I do have some friends under the logo outside of the delegation. And one of the things I have also heard about is the tax exemption for seniors. I don't know, I've heard that it's maybe just going to be for the North Fulton cities, but depending on how it rolls out, local legislation, it may affect our cities. So, you know, we've already got a tight budget. And with that, going back to it, I really don't feel comfortable saying yes or no and not having any numbers to put to the thing. So I know, Councilman Willis, you've done lobbying before. Do you know is there like a pay scale? Is it done by achievement, by the hour, or like how do they usually make their money?
That's an executive session discussion, but most of the time it's going to depend on what the legislative agenda is going to entail and what issues so all of that would take into
So
account.
like the bigger the agenda, the bigger the bill.
Yes, and how many, and sometimes when you have a firm, depending on what the topic is, they will be able to determine how many resources are going to be needed to be pulled in order to.
In your experience, is it a flat rate or is it
It
an hourly
depends.
rate?
It depends.
Okay. We should do. Okay, we're going to go to 10,000.
I wouldn't want to get surprised at the end of the session with a $50,000 bill.
I would ask, can we get some feedback in terms of what that price looks like? I know the Robbins firm has done lobbying for years. Can you shed some light on that for the benefit of the council?
Sure. And I think you covered most of it. Typically, the lobbyist retainers are flat fees. Typically, they're monthly. And they will vary depending on if you're just playing defense, i.e. stopping annexation into the city of South Fulton, or if you're playing offense, i.e. seeking to change the local constitutional amendment on the Fulton Industrial District. You tend to pay more for offense because it takes more time. And, you know, I truly couldn't tell you kind of what the range is. I think you should be expecting to pay tens of thousands of dollars, but whether that's 20 or whether that's 70 or whether that's 90, I mean, all of that is going to depend on what you're asking the person to do. You know, because I think as has been pointed out, GMA will do a fantastic job, and they always do, carrying the water for city issues generally, but there may be some that impact this area more specifically that you want to weigh in on. And again, I would think of it in terms of both offense, i.e. changing the law, and defense, i.e. preventing the law from being changed.
Let me ask you this, Mr. City Attorney, and I hope that colleagues will agree, rather short time, that you could, our next meeting if we have, or even before that, if you could send us out, having heard what we said today, if you could send us out some type of recommendation and giving Mr. Khalid and others maybe some slight figures of what it could possibly do, then it's all right with the council. I think that would be the first approach. During that time, though, we can discuss amongst ourselves what the legislative agenda would be, and it may turn out to be just what you said, Mayor Pro Tem, that is with the Fulton Industrial Board. All right. I think at this time, that's probably the thing that we're all most worried about, and we can piggyback off of GMA on other things. Is that agreeable?
That's agreeable, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be done with my discussion on this. I would highly recommend that we do not leave ourselves vulnerable. We need to have somebody, a professional, at that general assembly advocating on our behalf. based on my experience, on being down there for the past 4 years, just to get us here to be a city, we do not want to be left exposed.
Okay, I think it's all hands on
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, because I do understand Councilwoman Wilson's concern, that I've heard the reasons why. And I just want to know, I heard you kind of throw out approximately 10 to 15K a month. Is that something you think is, that we should be trying to do at this time? Like, even if that is the case?
Well, what I think is real reason much, you know, four people gonna make decided things here, but I do agree with you, at some point, we're gonna need some protection on something. You know, I just don't know what that is in line with the Mayor Pro Tem, all right? So that's the way I'm looking at it, that at some point in time, we need to be protected, and maybe what Josh will bring us back, hearing everything. Maybe we can go back and look at adjusting the budget or whatever the case may be to afford it.
I guess my concern is, if we're not going to hear from Robert's group until the 9th, how much time will we have to have purchasing put out RFP, or how will the process work?
That is the question.
Essentially starts at 8.
The 8th, yeah, so that's a day behind.
Go ahead.
For clarity, what I was looking for, and if that's not, I wanted to understand, being the fact that y'all have been involved on this whole conversation about incorporation from the beginning, what would that look like in terms of being realistic? You understand the landscape. What would that cost us? A price quote on the bottom. That's what I was looking for. So I want to be pleased.
That's what I asked for. Let's do this. Colleagues, if you want to, if you will submit to me any issues that you think we need to be looking at other than the Fulton Industrial, and as he goes through his process, I can give that to him also. But the Fulton Industrial is probably our main topic as we say. This is our time. Okay? So I think that's what we need to go on that. No further discussion. Is Mr. Perkins, the people here for the paying?
Yes, they are.
Okay, you call.
Request approval of the tax anticipation notes. Mr. Bond, council will please propose.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Doug Selby. I'm with Hunton & Williams and Wall, financial advisor. We're here this afternoon. We have prepared a tax anticipation resolution. We reviewed it with the city attorney. It would authorize the city to issue $12 million of tax anticipation notes. These are notes that are authorized under state law. You can issue them when in advance of receiving tax revenues. These would actually be used to pay off in part some of your existing obligations and carry you through until such time as your taxes come in. The documents are in place. Mr. Wall can answer any questions about the purchaser and the rate.
Thank you, sir. Hello, Mayor, how you doing? Good. Good to see y'all. How y'all doing? You all borrowed $12 million in TANs this past year, 2017. It was in two pieces, one $9 million piece and the other a $3 million piece. And because the tax bill went out late, you don't have enough money to pay them all in full. And so Frank and I worked with Iberia Bank, who purchased those TANs, to get them to agree to stamp these 2017 TANs paid and renew them with a new 2018 TAN. And so you could pay off a debt with cash. You could also refinance it and pay it off with a new note. And Georgia law requires y'all, when you do a TAN, that it has to mature every year by December 31. So Doug, who is a resident of South Fulton, helped us, isn't that right, boss? Yeah. And so he helped us work out the thread the needle through state law to get that done. And so we'll close these new TANs on January the 2nd. And because we were going to pay them from tax receipts that you received in 2017, we had talked about making the maturity February 28th. So the taxes are due January 15th. So I got to thinking, you're having to pay me, you're having to pay Doug, you're having to pay the bank's lawyer. why do it twice? Because you're gonna have to do a TAN again in 2018. So what if I made this new $12 million TAN mature 12/31/18? So it becomes the new TAN, the tax collections you have, you don't have to pay off a TAN and then reborrow it until you build up your reserves. So the banks agreed to that, the bank officer did, the bank's credit committee, because we're right here at the end of the year, haven't met yet, but he doesn't think he'll have any problem. So today, in the resolution that Doug has prepared for you, it's a new $12 million tax anticipation note with a maturity 12/31/18. And I'm hoping that I can make wood that's the case. I may have to come back to you if the bank credit committee doesn't approve it. We have to pay it off any earlier. And the interest rate is 2.8%.
That's what I'm getting down to. Seems like you were dancing around that.
Save the best for last.
Well, I don't know about the best, but it's good.
All right.
All right. Any questions, brother?
I make a motion to approve the tax anticipation note with Iberia Bank for $12 million.
And second.
It's been properly moved and second. Any further discussion? Having seen none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year to you. What is it? Hold up. I think it, if I'm mistake, I already passed unanimously, Lord. Did you vote against it? Yeah. Okay, it's passed unanimously. At this time, I guess we're ready to go into executive session regarding personnel.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we go into executive session regarding personnel, litigation, and real estate, and any other matters that need to be discussed.
I don't think any other matter to be discussed on here.
I just want to move to do it.
Personnel, and litigation.
Because we got an opinion from Josh that if we vote to discuss something in executive session, we can.
What I'm saying, you got to be specific as to what you're going to talk about in executive session. So any other things not specific. So it's for litigation, personnel, and real estate. That's your motion?
Yeah, hold on a second. Do you mind if I ask the attorney a question? Did you opine that if we're in executive session, that if we move to discuss a matter and if we vote on it, we can do so? Did I not read that correctly? No, he sent an opinion out via email this week.
But can I say something, Mayor?
Look, I want-
If she releases the floor to you.
I just wanted him to respond to that and then I'll yield to you.
Under the Open Records Act, or excuse me, Open Meetings Act, in order to go into executive session, you have to identify the reasons you're going into session. So personnel and litigation are two that have been raised, and now real estate. So that means you can have a conversation about specific matters related to personnel, related to litigation, and related to real estate. It's not, but those would be the topics, and if you choose to vote on something in executive session, that vote then has to be made again in open session once you're here.
Mayor,
I yield to.
but per the charter, does it not say, when this is a special meeting, this is not a regular meeting? It has to be on the agenda prior to be advertised, to change it, whatever's going on in executive session? No, personnel, but she's saying all other things added or something she said.
I think he addressed it. You couldn't do that.
You could, well, I mean, you can amend the agenda if you choose to expand the topic. And so that's an issue of, what does the agenda allow? But under the Open Meetings Act itself, you have certain exceptions, one of which is personnel, one of which is litigation, one of which is real estate. So I think it's a little bit two different questions.
I think. Is your motion to go into executive for the personnel?
I move that you want me to restate what I moved?
I want you to tell what's on the agenda.
I move that we go into executive session to discuss personnel, real estate, or litigation.
I think we first have to amend the agenda. Yes, we got to amend the agenda.
Because it's on the agenda as personnel. If you want to add others, you'll have to amend this agenda to do so. So your motion would be to amend the agenda to add. Pro Tem, go ahead. Mr. Attorney, would you please opine this so we go to the meeting?
Sure. And I think Councilwoman Jackson raises a good point. The section 3.13B of the charter addresses special meetings, which this is. The last sentence says, only business stated in the call may be transacted at the special meeting. So the agenda says executive session regarding personnel.
Okay.
You may be in fact limited to doing that at the specially called meeting.
That's fine.
Okay, so I need to rescind my last statement to move to go into executive session for personnel, real estate, and personnel, real estate, and litigation. I'll move that we go into executive session regarding personnel.
Second.
Probably moved and second in discussion. Would that be correct, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Yes. All right, that passes unanimously. We're going to the long time we had going to the action that was taken in executive session.
Did you close the meeting first? Or?
I will. I mean, I think it matters. I will. I'll take a motion to close the executive session.
I move to close the executive session.
The properly moved and second in discussion. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
I think all of them aye.
Aye. What we do?
Okay, that's unanimous, Mr. Clerk. Would you, at this time, announce action that was taken?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, a motion passed during executive session to remove the requirement for the legislative specialist to submit weekly activity reports and to only report hours worked, consistent with other city employees.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Then properly moved and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Y'all have a great day.
Happy New Year, everybody.